think I tend to bias towards the data in fast isn't as great as it should be. That there isn't a universal source of truth that people can touch upon. That apples to apples, especially in an era or a world or an ecosystem where y'all are using monthly active users as a measurement reference, that feels kind of discordant to me. But then you turn that on its head for me when we were talking. You feel like you're getting really that you're able to target your audiences, track them through the life cycle of the impression-based campaign, and then get real performance data on the other side of it. Do you mind just talking about how that experience looks like from your end of things?
Yeah, so what I was saying in that conversation was that it gives more democratization from a media perspective, and especially when you're thinking about multicultural, because what we know is that traditional measurement companies have always underrepresented diverse audiences. So going in, you have a deficit already if you're a multicultural property. You either don't have the scale, and I put that in quotations because the traditional, media measurement companies don't tend to it, right? Or you have an opportunity to underdeliver because the panel isn't representative of an audience, right? And where I think the opportunity is from a fast channel perspective, and this is what I allude to, is that you as a publisher can be very honest in terms of what you can deliver. You're no longer dependent on a third party to be able to tell you, you know what, your audience went from 1 million to 100,000 because there weren't 2 people watching TV. So if you are honest with yourself as a publisher and you're saying, I can deliver X amount of impressions, and you deliver that in full, me as a buyer, I will go back to you because you have that ability to deliver, whereas traditionally what we see from minority-owned and or targeted platforms, a lot of times there are a significant amount of liability because it's dependent on a third party. So that's where I think it's opened it in terms of, there is a very clear site of measurement, but also where I find that double-edged sword is that you use that going in, is it that clients are more dependent on what the go-in is versus just the delivery of it? But now your delivery is strictly based on what you realistically know you can and you shouldn't. I think it's better if you say you can deliver 100 and deliver 100 rather than saying you can deliver 1,000 and only deliver 100. So the onus is now on the media company to be able to be like, you know what, I'm going to deliver the audience that you want in the content that is relevant to them, but this is the amount of inventory I have. And
so you debunked the word investment in your title earlier because you said you don't have any money, but on innovation, on innovation,
you're right.
On innovation, you don't want them to bug you. I want to ask you a question like future cast here a little bit. Do you see demographic and background? We've bought against, that's been traditionally some definitions of advanced audience, but it does sound to me, or at least based on what I am reading and talking to people about, is that we're moving much more towards an impressions-based or per pure demographic buy to one that is based on outcomes, likely buyer types, and then tracking them through last touch attribution, but even further than that, all the way through the funnel down to did they download, did they click to put in cart and things like that. Is that you're sitting at a big organization. Are you feeling that trend moving that way? And is that a reflection, or is that reflected in your move towards things like fast because it gives you a level of new sources of information?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, data, and especially when you think about diverse audiences, is getting harder and harder and harder because of all the privacy laws, right? So you have to get more strategic in terms of how you are approaching diverse audiences. And to your question, yes, I think that ultimately the closer that you can get to that delivery, because maybe it's not that, and that, let me answer your question and then, because KPIs are extremely critical as well in terms of when you're thinking about diverse audiences, because they might not be in the same place as your general market consumer because you haven't been speaking to them as long, or you haven't been as relevant to them as long. So understanding that business challenge that you're trying to overcome, then marrying that to the KPI can be critical, right? But no matter what, always, if you can get closer to that KPI in a very objective way, I think that that's where we're always leaning towards from an innovation perspective, right? Because your KPI from a general market perspective can be conversion, but if from a Hispanic perspective they're not even aware, then how are you going to measure them on the same playing field. You can't measure the same. So if you don't have a clear understanding going in terms of what your challenges are for the individual audience, that's where it gets really challenging. And when I hear the word test, it freaks me out. Because if you're just gonna throw money at it and be like, oh, this is my test, and you don't have a clear understanding of what you're testing or what you're trying to get to from a test, then that's how we get to the fact of we tested multicultural and it didn't work. You said fuck already, so fuck you. You didn't like
it's a safe space. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, I don't know, there's a camera back there, so I don't know how safe it is, but whatever. Sorry, Shelby. But that, like, I think if you don't have a clear understanding and the insights that are critical to understand the audience, then it's not an even playing field.